For years, the Mean Girls Nintendo DS game looked like one of those titles everybody remembered and nobody could produce. It had box art, it had retailer listings, it appeared in databases with dates and descriptions. People were certain they had seen it on a shelf, but no verified retail cartridge surfaced, and the publisher's own support page eventually gave the blunt answer. The game was never commercially published. Then, a researcher and video creator called Bobdunga spent months following the paper trail, contacted people connected to the project, and received a private development build from an anonymous team member. The game was real. It was also unfinished in a way that made the discovery harder to explain. This was not a clean case of released then lost. It was a nearly complete licensed game that generated the paperwork of a release without crossing the final line into stores. The title was announced during the late 2000s rush of licensed Nintendo DS games. Retail pages copied the same promotional language, databases assigned dates, box art circulated. From a distance, that is exactly what a normal, low-budget release looks like. The problem is that game data is highly contagious. One distributor entry can be copied into dozens of stores, then preserved by price trackers and fan wikis long after the product is canceled. More listings do not necessarily mean more independent evidence. They may all descend from one planned release date. The Mean Girls case became a lesson in separating administrative existence from physical existence. A title can be real enough to have marketing materials, a publisher, and a nearly finished build, while still never producing the retail object collectors expect to find. Those memories were sincere, but they conflicted with the physical record. No cartridge dump, no manual scan tied to a verified copy, no collector able to photograph the front, back, board, and purchase history. The DS had plenty of similar licensed games, and the Mean Girls box art had circulated online for years. Memory can fill a gap with something that feels right. Good lost media research does not mock that, it simply asks for evidence the memory should have left behind. In this case, the absence of a retail copy became more meaningful as the search expanded. The official 505 game support answer narrowed the question. According to the publisher, the Mean Girls DS game was never released for purchase. That does not mean development was imaginary. It means the search should stop looking for a normal retail history and start looking for production materials. Who made it? How far did they get? Did review copies or internal builds survive? This pivot is where the case became productive. The goal was no longer to prove that thousands of cartridges had vanished. It was to locate one person who had worked close enough to the project to know what remained. A commercial DS release should leave several independent traces. Collectors should be able to produce cartridges with matching label codes. ROM databases should record a dump. Retail scans, receipts, manuals, or regional ratings should line up with the claimed launch. Mean Girls had promotional traces, but not that physical cluster. This negative evidence is stronger than simply saying nobody found one. The search community knew exactly what a normal release would look like because thousands of other DS games had left that pattern. The gap was structural. Games marketed toward girls in the DS era were often treated as disposable, even when they sold. Critics ignored them. Preservation groups prioritized famous franchises. Developers rarely expected anyone to document prototypes for fashion, romance, or celebrity licenses. That bias matters because prestige shapes what survives. A canceled action game may attract former developers and collectors immediately. A nearly finished Mean Girls game can be dismissed as shovelware before anyone checks whether it is historically unusual. Bobdunga's broader documentary work on girl games created the conditions for this search by treating the category seriously. The project's supposed triviality was not a reason to ignore it. It was part of why the evidence had been allowed to scatter. The investigation moved through archived listings, old screenshots, public posts, and direct outreach. Most leads did not produce a build. That is normal, but it is rarely shown in polished discovery stories. The useful part of documenting dead ends is that the search itself becomes visible to people who may know more. A former team member who would ignore a random message can understand a careful project. Community posts also create a time-stamped record of what was known before the breakthrough. Eventually, an anonymous person connected to development responded and provided a build privately. The source chose not to be identified. That limits what outsiders can independently verify about the handoff, but it also reflects a common reality. People may preserve work they are not authorized to distribute publicly. The recovered build did not immediately behave like a finished cartridge. Development software can expect specific hardware, file paths, save data, or debugging conditions. Bobdunga and collaborators had to work through crashes and progression problems, patching around blockers so the game could be documented. That distinction matters. A patched playthrough demonstrates the content of the recovered build. It does not prove the game was retail ready, or that the patch represents an official final version. The resulting footage shows a game that is remarkably complete. Locations, dialogue, minigames, and a full structure are present. The documentary team reported reaching roughly 97% completion. That number describes how much they could play through, not a publisher-certified completion percentage. Careful wording keeps the discovery impressive without turning an estimate into a release claim. The game follows a new student, moving through a Mean Girls version of high school, with conversations, errands, social choices, and minigames built around the license. It is exactly the kind of project that could have disappeared because nobody expected it to be ambitious. Yet the build contains a large amount of finished-looking art and playable material. Seeing it changes the question from, did this exist? To, why did something this far along fail to ship? The public evidence does not provide a complete business answer. Licensed games can be canceled for timing, approval, finances, platform strategy, or a change in the rights relationship. The build proves the work. It does not magically reveal the meeting that stopped it. The recovery also created an awkward preservation state. The build exists in private hands and has been extensively documented, but broad public distribution raises legal and source protection issues. That can feel unsatisfying to viewers who equate found with downloadable. The two are not the same. A source may share a development copy only for research.
A documentary can prove the game's content without having permission to release the file. The strongest response is transparent about that boundary. Show the evidence, explain the patches, preserve footage and metadata, and avoid pretending private custody is the final form of preservation. Ideally, rights holders or a legitimate archive would eventually provide a stable path. Until then, the game is found in one sense and restricted in another. The recovered build could also be checked internally. Its assets, menus, dialogue, progression, and licensed presentation fit the project described in contemporary listings. The content extended far beyond the handful of screenshots that had circulated publicly, which made a fan-made reconstruction implausible. Recording long, continuous play sessions provided stronger evidence than a montage of impressive screens. Viewers could see loading behavior, repeated systems, unfinished edges, and the exact places where patching was needed. Authenticity came from the boring continuity as much as the recognizable characters. But the evidence still does not support the claim that a normal retail release happened. That separation is the whole point. Box art is not a cartridge. A listing is not a sale. A playable build is not automatically a finished product. By refusing to collapse those categories, the search recovered something better than a childhood memory. It recovered the actual development object and a credible account of how it reached the public record. The game did not vanish after release. It came close to release, stopped, and then left enough traces for one patient investigation to find the people behind them.